part 2 of week 14. Week 14, part number 2. We're on page 39. Let's run through some of this, and then we'll see if we have some time to get through some of these letters that were sent back. But deputation, survey trip, should it be required? And I put in all caps, yes. You may say, why? This trip will give you a feel of where you may spend the rest of your life. You better believe a survey trip is necessary. When someone says they're called to a mission field, one of the things that they need to do at some point is to get, as the military will call, boots on the ground. You need to get your feet on that ground and look and survey that area, because this will allow you to get a real burden for the place God has called you, and also verify some things. Is it really what God wants? Is it not? Is there a place that I want to start considering where I may be, where I would go, where I would start the work, all those things. We mentioned for how long. Just so everyone knows, this isn't, I have had the opportunity to pull some of these ideas from multiple locations, one of which is a manual that was put together by a missionary that's in country now, in a country that he's been on the field for a number of years now. And when he got done, he wrote a manual on deputation. And some of these thoughts are from him. So I thought this is good, because this is getting perspective from someone that's experienced it, right? The longer the better. You say, how long? This is where you will spend the rest of your life. The longer you can make the trip will help you to understand the challenges you will face on the field. If you can make that trip as long as possible, it would be good, because there's going to be so many questions that you need answers to. The average survey trip for most is 1 to 2 weeks in duration. And one of the books I was reading, and specifically this was by a missionary, they said there is no possible way to learn everything that you need to learn about living in this new place in that amount of time. Some missionaries say 2 to 3 months for a survey trip would be ideal. You say, how in the world could I do that? I don't know, but is it saving the money back doing it? A month would be minimum. Some say 3 months. But understand, if you're going to spend the rest of your life on that field, you need to decide, okay, is there a real burden? Is this, is what God wants? What about where should I begin? When I get in this country, where should I begin? Okay, now this is where I think God wants me to begin. What kind of living conditions is in that place? Where do I shop? Where do I get groceries? How to obtain a car? What's nearby where I could live? Where can I live? What's a place to live? What are some of the better neighborhoods? What are some of the middle neighborhoods? What are some of the worst neighborhoods? Because just like in America, there are bad neighborhoods and good neighborhoods in that place you're going. All those things you need answers to. Oh, I'm going to do this in 2 weeks. There is no possible way to learn everything you need to learn in that amount of time that you give yourself. Some missionaries say 2 to 3 months. 3 months is about the length that a tourist visa will be issued for most countries as well. Find out how long a tourist visa is good for the country you're intending to go to. Okay, can you make that tourist visa? Can you get that amount of time off? Do you have enough money saved back for that amount of that time you can be in country with that visa? In these 3 months, you should be able to do the following. Get a good feel for the field to present a realistic burden to the churches back home. I mean, how are you going to piece together your trip? I mean, you're going to want to be taking notes. You're going to want to be getting photos. You're going to be wanting to be thinking about, okay, when I get back, how am I going to present this? Maybe it's you just get a lot of photos, but you take good notes and you attach the date to those notes. But you're going to have to build a presentation from when you've been there. Get an idea of how to shop for food in the country, where things are located. Get an idea of where you can live, when in country. Like I said, you're going to be living here. Take that time to figure out what's a good place. Meet some people with whom you could work with. When I say that, is there a senior missionary? When I say senior, someone that's been in country for a while that you can work alongside for X amount of time. You say, what's the benefit to that? You know, we don't want to be some might think, oh, I don't need to work right where this missionary is because they're already doing the work. I need to go somewhere else. Long term, yes, but short term, it might be good for you to start with a missionary that's already in country because they can help you get your quote-unquote feet wet and might be a help to your family, especially if you have a family, to be able to transition to a new country. There's a lot of benefits to be able to work with a senior missionary for an X amount of time before you go to the field that you think God would eventually have you at, that in country, you understand, to the place. Because you might be able to be a help to them and encouragement to them. They're going to be an encouragement to you to transition. Is it 6 months you're with them? Is it a year you're with them? Maybe it's 2 years. Long term, 2 years, and then I go out to this city over here. And then maybe you're still close enough where maybe there's some times, you know, a weekend, or maybe there's a week or a couple of weeks out of the year, or, you know, several times out of the year, you're trying to get with them and still do some things together and still see somebody that is like you, and you can help encourage each other. Should the family go along? I don't put it in all caps, but maybe it should be yes. If at all possible, yes, yes, yes. The survey trip is just as important for your family as it is you. They will be living under the same conditions that you are. And in some cases, you're sold, you're set, you know this is what you think God wants, this is what God wants, but your family may still need to see the country, experience the country, and get that assurance that, okay, I can live here. Yes, I see the calling, I see the need. They're getting a visual to what God's already doing in their heart. We hope that God's already done in your heart, but they need that assurance. They need to see it. This will be a great time for them to see the field just like you. They will have the opportunity to receive the burden that God has called you into. This will be especially important for your wife. I'll tell you why. She will need time to be able to get accustomed to the living in this new culture and way of life. That's why 2 to 3 months would be a great amount of time for your family also to experience the country, to experience the culture, to experience where are things at, where are things located. Because let me tell you something. Now, every personality is different, and I'll just be honest, transparent for a minute. I'm of a personality that I like to know where things are at. That's just the way I'm built. I like to know where everything's parked, where everything's put. And what I mean is, like, even where I live, okay, where's this at? Where's this at? Where's this at? But guys, let me be honest, I can still live with some chaos more than my wife. Typically, a woman's going to want to know where certain things are. Your family is going to be needed for them to know where things are, more than even you. It's going to be important. So she will need time to get accustomed to the living in this new culture and way of life. Guys typically can go without the support system of a bunch of guys, a bunch of buddies, more than the wife can go without the support system of people she knows. It's just true. It's just natural. So she's going to need time to get to know this culture. And again, if there is a senior missionary that's there in country and his family or his wife, it's a great opportunity for your family. She will want to know where things are located for her, the children, the home. Think about this, changes for your family. That's why I say, should the family go? Changes for your family? Okay, here's some things to consider. What will it cost to live in the country? A survey trip is an opportunity to figure some of these things out. How much money are you spending on that each week already when you're just in country as a tourist? How much do you think you're going to have to... Those are questions that would be great to get answers to. Is it mandatory for your children to attend the public schools if your children are of school age? And think about this. If you don't have children yet, or if they're younger than school age, those are questions you better get answers to and find out, because if it's a mandatory thing, you're going to have to make the decision: do my children go into the school system, or is there a waiver because I'm a foreigner and I can still teach them? What are the schools like? Are they going to be taught in a different language? Are they going to be teaching? What are they going to be teaching? Those are things to get answers to. Now, if your family is old enough and you don't have children school age, you don't have children, then that's something you don't need an answer to. What supplies will you need to get from your home country that you cannot get on the field? Can you easily get them? Can they be sent to you? Are there things that, oh, well, there's this here, I can use this instead of what I'm used to in my home country? Fine, okay. But think about that. That's why that 2 to 3 months is a great time, because you can go to the stores that you're going to be around and say, is that there? How often do they get it? Do they get it? How much does it cost? Because I can tell you right now, yeah, a lot of countries have American stores where you can buy American products, but they may be 4 times the amount that they are at home. So then, are you going to be able to do that? What can you buy locally? What's something you can buy locally in country that will work for you? What is housing like? If you're used to living in a 3-bedroom rancher in the States, they may not have ranchers in the country you're going to. You may be living in a flat. You may be living in a concrete building. You may be living in a grass hut. You may be, fill in the blank. It depends upon the country you go to, what you might be experiencing. Can you do that? Again, I know of at least one or more missionary where they tried living as much like the culture that they could. They finally had to say after 3 or 4 years, okay, we can give here, we're trying, but we've got to make some adjustments for the family. And some may say, well, that's wicked. It's not your family. So you've got to decide what are some things you're going to do. What is housing like? What is the postal system like? You say, why do you mention that? Well, if you're getting stuff from home, is it reliable? I've got some family on the field, and unfortunately, I won't name this country because I don't want it backlash or anything, and not that it would be. But their postal system is horrible. I mailed something, it's been several years ago, because it wasn't priority. I guess that meant to that country's postal system, if they never got it, who cares? Because to this day, we don't know what happened. We saw that it got to that country, and it magically disappeared. I guess the postal worker, hey, look what I found. Or they just didn't care and they just threw it away because they didn't want to do their work. Anyway, is the postal system reliable? Are you going to have to send something at a particular level of importance to make sure they get it or make sure you get it? What are the local and federal laws? You say, well, what does that matter? You may step out to street preach the first time you're there and you may get put in jail. Or you may violate a law while driving or shopping that you didn't even know was a law. Don't think that everywhere you go in the world, all the laws are like America. Because you may violate something you had no idea you were violating. You better learn some of the laws of the land. Can you get internet? Now, not for your games. Not that, every now and then it might be fun. But you want to communicate with back home? Do you want to be able to, with special software, watch back home? Well, you may want internet. How good is the internet? Is it reliable? Is it not? There's other things to consider. And I think I'm going to take this moment for just a few minutes, and then we'll talk about scheduling meetings, because I think this is a good time. One missionary that we are connected with was so gracious enough. This actually comes from the wife, and I'm thankful for this because she took it upon herself to write some of this. As I read, you may figure out who it is, and that's fine. But I will not name names because I don't want to. I don't want any problems for them because they are in a closed country. A few practical considerations for women on the field. Now, guys, you may get some help from this too, so listen, okay? It's not time to sleep. It's time to listen to. What kind of convenience foods are available? If you like your foods, you may not have access to frozen vegetables, boxed mixes, familiar pasta, or other items. Making things from scratch is a learned skill, and it may be something that you need to learn before you go. Just think about it. You may not be able to get the pre-packed mixes that you have here. Because again, what did I say about what can you buy locally? American stores may be 4 times the amount that you're used to in America. A good cookbook to look at is Extending the Table. I actually looked this cookbook up. It's available on Amazon. It's available as a Kindle, ebook. It's available as a ring-bound, softback, hardback. Let's see what else. Anyway, it's actually produced by the Mennonites, which was interesting. You may not need this where you're going. You may be going to a country where the premixes may be different, but they may be very similar. Just for instance, you go to England, you may be able to find something very similar. May not be exactly the same, but you may be okay. You may go to some European countries that may have some premixes as well, and you may be okay. But if you go to the bush somewhere, you may not have it. If you go to some Asian countries, you may not have it. Okay? So Extending the Table may be a good cookbook. There was another one too, and if you remind me if somebody wants it, I'll mention it as well. I'd looked it up, and it's a companion to this book as well, which had some things. But it's recipes from around the world, mostly made from scratch. You may need that. What kinds of foods are and are not available? This kind of backs what I was just saying about buying locally versus American store. For instance, if you like to eat cereal for breakfast, may be fine, may not be. This particular individual says, what are you going to do if the cereal is not available where you're going, or it's prohibitively expensive, say $7 to $10 a box? $7 to $10 a box. What do we pay usually? $2 to $3 a box? $4 at the most? Okay, you're more than doubling in some cases the amount that you're going to pay. Also, some certain spices are not available around the world. If you're used to using certain spice here, you may not be able to get it in the country you're going to. You may have to experiment a little bit to see if something you can do. What kinds of clothing are available? For instance, in Asian countries, larger sizes may be difficult to find, while in other countries, clothes may be much more expensive than they are in the U.S. If you can't replace clothing items for several years, you may need to bring more over, or you may need to learn to mend some things. So that's something to consider as well. How are clothes cared for? Well, you need to wash clothing by hand. Is a washing machine the same the country you're going to that it is here? Some equipment's not the same as it is in the States. Again, you go to Europe, most of Europe, and obviously England, you're going to find something. Do keep in mind that voltage is different in other countries, and you may be able to get equipment, but it may be slightly different. You may need to wash clothes by hand. This individual said they learned the hard way that denim skirts were not, hand washing and denim skirts did not combine very well because denim's so heavy and retains water so much. It was hard to hand wash and wring out. So that's something that you got to consider. Guys, you wear blue jeans, you go to a country that doesn't have washing machines readily available, you may have to find something lighter, a lighter fabric in pants over, denim, right? So that's something to consider. If clothes have to last several years, you may want to use a few items and gradually introduce more as you go along. What kinds of over-the-counter medicines are available? Now, that's something we didn't mention here, but what you can get over the counter here, you may not be able to get over the counter there. Now, what's an ironic thing is that again, a family member I have, they can get antibiotics right off the shelf. Where here you got to have a prescription. But that's not always the case. Some of the medicines you use regularly in the U.S. may not exist in your target field. Others may only be available through a prescription, even though they are sold over the counter in the States. Some may be sold under an unfamiliar name. I won't try to pronounce this, but for instance, Tylenol is sold under a different name entirely in Britain than it is here. How much of your regular medicines would you need for a whole year? 4 years? Can medications be mailed from the U.S. to your target field, or will they be confiscated? How much would it cost to mail the box of medicines? And how can you pack it in a suitcase as well? Another consideration, if you have children, some children's medications are not available in all countries. In many places, they simply tell you, oh, here's the adult dosage, here's what you give the children, and they may give it to you in a different dosage recommendation than what you're used to in the States. For instance, their measurement units may be different. If a doctor told you to give your child 2 milliliters per 10 kilograms of body weight every 4 hours, would you know what size dose to give them? So there's things to consider. You may not be able to get children's medication. They may just simply say, here's the adult, give them a lower dosage for that. And what will you get? How will you get around? Cars are not always practical. In many places, people simply walk or take public transit. How many groceries could you carry from the store from public transit? What type of medical care is available? And we could go on. I won't go through all this. I think if you would like to have some of this, I'm happy to print it off and give it to you. What type of medical care? If you're younger, consider what would you do if you get pregnant. Are you going to have your child in country? Or are you going to go back to the States? What is the medical facilities like? I remember I was one missionary that was in a closed country, and they were in an Arab area. And I remember that they made the decision not to come back to the States to have the baby, and because of where they were at in country, they ended up with an Arab doctor, an Arab nurse, and would you believe it? You can see how long this has been. The mom had the baby on 9/11. And the mother was literally watching the towers fall in the U.S. while she had an Arab nurse sitting just staring her down after having her baby. Now, if you want to have... I can't even imagine what that mom felt like. Her baby is laying there in the bassinet thing next to her. The nurse is sitting there just staring at her. And on the TV, the towers are falling in the U.S. She's got an Arab nurse, an Arab doctor, and she's laying there, couldn't move because of the medication and stuff. And she's thinking, what in the world is going to happen? Now, honestly, for me, I would have wanted to, by far, had found a better facility somewhere in country, or even make arrangements that I would have had my family back in the States to have the child. But can you imagine in a situation like that? And now that's not always what you're going to face, granted, but that's an extreme. But that is something to consider. If you have a child you're expecting, what arrangements are you making for that? What type of dental care is available? Eye care, what's it like? In many countries, it's much harder to get medical care. In places like Canada with public health care, it may take months to just get an x-ray. So, there's all those things to consider. If, again, you have children of school age, are you going to homeschool? If you do, now again, here's two ends of the coin, two sides of the coin. Do your children go to the public system that's there? Is there a private? If there is, do you use it? If you do homeschool and you want to use American textbooks, how are you getting them there? Books are heavy, whether packed in a suitcase or shipped. Would you homeschool? How would homeschool materials be mailed to you? Will you buy all new or used? Will you take enough for a full year or part of a year, 4 years, 5 years? Can the curriculum that you're using be reused for another child? And will you need all new for children every year? Even what comfort items will you bring? You say, well, I can do without us guys. I'll just, change and everything will be fine. That's fine for you, but what about your wife? What about your children? Well, is there some things they want to take with them? Because think about it. Sometimes comfort items, whether it's special foods, games, toys, hobbies, that might be a way to get rid of the frustrations from the week, from the day, from the week that you've been through, and it's just a nice way to relax. So you do have to consider those things. Will you take family pictures? Favorite Christmas ornaments for those that celebrate Christmas can help lessen the homesickness that you've had. Maybe there's special, just special things that you would like. What about power and water? In some countries, the power goes off at a certain time and doesn't kick back on until the next day. Sometimes it's in the mid-afternoon. Can you handle that? Are there ways to live while the power is off? Can you drink the water? Do you need to boil the water first? How do you need to disinfect? How long could you go without water or power? Again, it all depends upon what country you go to, but these are questions that you must ask for the field you're going to. You say, that's a lot of questions. That's things people don't think about when they say, hey, I think it would be neat to go to. Really? Those are things that you're going to face. Now, let me do this. We'll try to get to some of the other papers that I got from some missionaries a little later, maybe next week. We'll see. It's 9:30, but let me get through a little bit more tonight because there's some more stuff we do need to cover next week. Scheduling meetings, calling in leads from other missionaries. Now, we're back to the deputation, okay? And I may read one or two here, some of the questions I gave some of the missionaries, and I think this may be helpful. But here's the technical side of it. Okay, you're going to go on deputation. How are you going to keep up with everything? Tracking your calls. I'll be honest with you. Microsoft Excel is a wonderful tool. Wonderful. I mean, project management, all kinds of stuff. It's a wonderful tool. Now, I will say that that's great. You should also have a good calendar system. And honestly, in today's technology, a digital calendar that you can actually sync across the board of all your calendars, whether it's Google or it's Microsoft Outlook or something, is a great tool because now anymore with a smartphone, you can attach that calendar to here and it'll tell you, hey, I need to be over here in 3 days, and you can even attach it to even an itinerary, but you've got to keep up with what you do. Microsoft Excel is a great tool for this, or some other call contact management. This will be one of the best places to keep track of everything on each church you interact with. And here are some things to keep in the spreadsheet. No, I didn't build this from scratch. Thank God there was, again, this goes back to one of the missionaries reading after, and this is what he did. And here are some things to keep up with. Meeting date. This is the first thing to put probably in your column. The meeting date. This will make them populate chronologically. You'll have, okay, we know today's this date. Everything from here back, I've met with. Everything here forward, I'm meeting with. And what you do is you go along, you fill in this information. You say, what information do I fill in? No, I just need the pastor's name, church, and address, and I'm good to go. Church name, pastor's name, church address, church phone number, home phone, if he has one, cell phone, if he has one, more and more. Guess what? A lot of people are ditching the home phone for a cell phone and just the church, and that may be what you have. Email, website. You say, why do I want to put down their website? Hey, guess what? There's something called hyperlink you can put in that column, in that cell, and it's great. You can click right on it. You can go to it. But this is going to help you learn a lot from visiting the host church's site. You're going to know, now not always, again, sometimes they're just billboards, but you might be able to glean some information from that church you're visiting before you even step foot on their property. Comments. Have a place for comments. You may say, well, like what? Well, maybe who you spoke to, or maybe it was like this. It might be where I had a fifth wheel, so I had to park here. So next time when you go visit, you don't have to remember, now, did I park on this side of the church? Where was that hookup? Those are little things, but believe me, you're going to want that. Love offering. This will be important for taxes. You've got to keep up with how much you have coming in, and you also will know immediately how much have I raised percentage-wise. Again, there's so many tools in Microsoft Excel. Total mileage. Again, important for taxes. You can write your mileage off. And let me tell you something. I've done some self-employment. It's wonderful to write mileage off. It'll save you a bundle in taxes. References. Who told you about the church? So when you call the pastor, again, this is a living, breathing Excel sheet because you're adding to it as you go. Oh, a reference. Oh, when I call the pastor, hey, such and such told me about you, and hey, yeah, I know Jim or John. Yeah, okay. That could be helpful. Contacts, key people you met in the church. Because it may be that a deacon arranges everything that goes on before the service. So next time you're there, you say, hey, where is Dale? Where is Bill? Okay, I'm just throwing names out, of course. Contacts, support status. None, how much, promised. Okay, they promised. How much did they promise? Okay, okay, this is how much has been promised. This is how much I'm already receiving. But you're keeping a log. You're keeping track. Have you added them to the prayer letter? So you might have up at the top, you might say added prayer letter, yes, no, yes. Sent confirmation beforehand. Oh, I called them. Maybe you called, maybe you left a voicemail that we're coming. Did you send them a thank you letter after? Did you call them and thank them? Pastor's wife's name. You say, why do I need to know her name? Again, you interact with the pastor. When you call back and say, hey, brother such and such, how's your wife, Cynthia, and how are the 3 children? Yeah, it's Bobby, Susie, and Jim, right? I'm just saying, I know we smirk about that, but when you call that person, you say, hey, how are they? You just now personalized your phone call and you interact with them. And especially if that pastor, you don't know what he's facing, you may be a blessing to him with that. You may also just saved yourself, maybe you're interacting with him 6 months later and the church has hit a rough spot and you may have just saved yourself, hey, this missionary was personal. This missionary over here doesn't care anything about us, and I don't even know if they care about what they're doing. You're adding a layer of personable relationship with that pastor, and it helps. Again, it's a great thing to do. Be persistent. Now, this is where you might be calling, you may be trying to get in contact with that pastor. More than one call may need to be made. If you get the secretary, try to get through to the pastor. Try. Because, let's face it, one of the jobs of a secretary, and any secretary worth their salt, is to screen you. You say, well, that's just not fair. Sorry, get over it. They're there to screen you. Is this even worthy to interrupt the pastor's time? Let's face it. If you cannot get past the secretary, then find out where you may send an email or a letter with information. But get something in that pastor's hand, or the missions pastor, or whoever's appointed for that work. Call back in a few days after sending the packet or email and check to see if any more info is needed. You say, isn't that being a little too persistent? No. Give it enough time to get there. If it's an email, call a few days later. If it needs time to get there, call next week. But say, hey, did you get, I'll just check and make sure you got it. I mailed it. The mail, sometimes things can get lost. Just want to see if you got it. You need any more information? Can I help you with anything? Any questions from what I sent you? Can I put you down in my calendar to come present my work? Now, you might get kicked back with, hey, can you fill out this questionnaire? You need to fill out the questionnaire. You say, well, that's just not worth my time. Well, obviously, they're giving you their service to present your work, and they want to make sure that you are going to line up with their doctrine, because guess what? They're putting their stamp of approval on you by giving their offering, their money, their time, their prayers. They want to be sure that you are going to line up with them. And so, yes, it's worth it. Be courteous. Don't be rude. Don't be rude. Now, don't get bulldozed either. Don't be trampled. However, don't be sorry for calling. Don't start with, oh, I'm so sorry to bother you. I know it's... And you know what? I'm guilty of that sometimes, because I've got this personality where I don't want to intrude. And listen, I'm working on it. But it's almost a natural, it's a reaction almost. Hey, I'm sorry to bother you. Why? What you got to say is not worthy? So don't be rude, but don't be always saying sorry when you call. Approach them as if you have a blessing for them. This is going to be a blessing to your church to be able to present our work, what God's laid on our heart, and where we're going, and what we believe God's going to do with us. This is an opportunity for you to come to their church and share with them what God is doing, what God's worked in your heart, and what God has laid on you in your heart to do in that field that He's calling you to. Many pastors will appreciate your diligence and note it. This missionary, I did not put it in the notes, but he was saying how that one pastor was pressing him hard, like almost like he was being a bother. And then when this missionary pushed back and was courteous but very direct, the pastor said, "Hey, I'm glad to see you're so firm." He said, "This is part of my way of testing to see if a missionary, if you're diligent enough to get a meeting with me, then you're going to be diligent enough to be on the field." It's like, okay. You say, well, that's crazy. Hey, guess what? There's a lot of churches in the U.S., and there's a lot of pastors and different personalities. You're gonna face many different ones. Keep a full schedule. You say, well, wow, that can be difficult. I know, but here's why. This should be an important goal for you. You will want to reference your Excel spreadsheet and keep your schedule and calendar that you can reference. There are plenty of digital calendars and digital assistants in today's world. Find one that works well for you, your needs, and use it. A full schedule is at least 2 churches a week. You will have weeks where you will be able to spend a full week with a church, and this will be good for you and them. If it at all possible, stay and get to know some people. You say, why would I want to do that? Guess what? You get to know some people. Those people remember you. They're more likely to remember you and pray for you. And maybe in that church it's an annual thing where they review their missionaries and say, hey, maybe we need to make some cuts in 2 years. Who are we going to cut? Oh, I remember such and such. They were such a blessing. I know that their work was so good. There's no way we can cut them. Now, it's not all about the finances. I understand. But you also want to get to know some people so they can pray for you, so they can remember you. So when you come back through, they remember you. And it's good. It's a good relationship. Try and get booked out 6 to 8 months ahead and stay there. And here's why. Be serious about debutation and try to get finished soon. The longer debutation is for you, the more you cause doubt and concerns from existing churches, supporters, and your own confidence. And also, keeping a full schedule will assure that, hey, you're moving forward. The more churches you're in, the more likelihood of getting that support where it needs to be, and you're staying, there's accountability. There's accountability that you need to think about. Items to send to the church and pastor. Introduction packet includes a DVD with info. Introduction letter from home church pastor. Include an introduction letter from another respected missionary maybe. Those are all good, but maybe get some letters from your supporting church that a pastor will write. Maybe it's a church you've been associated with in the past. Let them write a letter and send that in with that introduction packet. Maybe it's a DVD. Maybe it's also just a URL to where go to view your presentation, but that's important. Email a short introduction to the pastor. And again, in today's society, email may work just as good. You can put it all together and send it. But if you are sending hard copy, be sure that there's information in there. Now, let's do this. We're not down to... Well, let me do this. Let me just go ahead and... trying to decide if I want to read just a couple of quick things, or tell you what, it is 9:45. I'm going to go ahead and give you all, you can go ahead and we'll be done tonight. There are a few more things that we're going to cover next week, and I'll have those for then. I will save these letters from missionaries for next week as well, because I think getting a vantage point from them on what we've talked about tonight will be good. And then we'll talk about presenting the ministry as well, and we'll have some other notes for next week. Thank you all so much. Next week you will also get information for your final. But again, thank you. I hope you have a good night. Get you some rest. I know some of you have been up for a while, or you have a long drive ahead of you. So please be safe. But have a good night.